Juggling work, family, and caregiving? I'm sure you're feeling overwhelmed, but you're not alone. Many working caregivers struggle to balance it all, often unaware of the resources available to them through their employer. This week, we uncover hidden gems in your employee benefits package, benefits that can ease the caregiving burden and give you back precious time and energy. Time and energy you need for all those other things you got to do. Are you leaving money and support on the table? Well, tune in to find out. Welcome to Fading Memories. Welcome back, Fading Memories listeners. You know, I always appreciate you giving us some of your time. And for that, I try to give you back really great, information. Today, I am talking to Kathy Sikorski. She is an elder law attorney. She also took care of 8 family members over the course of 30 years, which, that's exhausting. And she and I are going to be talking about some of the benefits that you working sandwich caregivers are available to you through your employer, and maybe some things that you should start asking for, because this is not an easy or quick journey. So with that, I'm your host, Jen Fink, and thanks for joining me, Kathy.
Thanks for having me, Jen. I love this topic. Yes, I'm an elder lawyer. I've been an elder lawyer for many years. However, yes, I've been a caregiver for 8 different family members and friends during that period of time. Not as my job. That was just family members and friends, but that's how I got this job. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I was a small town general practice attorney, and elder law, which is what I do when I practice law, is really fairly new. It sort of has grown up around the fact that we're getting older, but staying alive, right? Right. And I always tell people, they say, "Oh, I need an estate attorney," and I'm like, "Okay, there's 2 different kinds of lawyers in this area. One is an elder lawyer, and one is an estate lawyer. And what is the difference? Elder lawyers are for live people, and estate lawyers are for dead people. It's really as simple as that, right? So my people weren't dead; my people were just getting sick, and so elder law, which has really blossomed because we're staying alive, is about those issues around Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, long-term care, et cetera, right? What do I need? How do I protect myself? What do I do in a crisis? Blah, blah, blah. So while I'm doing that, I'm actually having the real life experience of taking care of lots of different people with lots of different needs. And honestly, I know people say this, I'm grateful for the experience, but I really am, only because it really truly informed my work, right? I was able to really focus on, what do people actually need? Where do these pitfalls happen? Why aren't we ready for this? And how can we get better at it? And how can we help other people get better at it? So podcasts like yours are awesome, because you're doing exactly what people need. You're saying, listen, pay attention now. Listen to all these great people I'm bringing into the room for you to help you get ready, so that if you have a crisis, or before you have a crisis, you actually have learned something to help you along the way. So thanks for having me.
Well, you're very welcome. And this year, 2025, I'm actually diving into topics I haven't talked about for over 300 episodes. So it's kind of exciting, because there's definitely an evolution. But there was one thing that it surprised me to my core and dang near hurt my brain permanently, is the number of people who do not know what a sandwich caregiver is. One of which is a friend of mine who is retired, and he used to manage facilities and people. And I was like, how can you not know this? Like, you just started collecting Medicare. I was shocked. So I think
too.
There's that. And people don't identify as a caregiver, because for me, when after my dad died and I became responsible for my mom, I was just doing what a daughter's supposed to do, right? Nobody was offering to step in and just let me do my thing and visit. No, I had to be responsible for her needs and her care and all that stuff. And it wasn't until I went to my first Alzheimer's Association support group, the facilitator there said, doesn't matter where your loved one lives, if they're in memory care, if they live with you, if they live on their own, if you're doing, buying groceries, taking them to the doctor, making these kinds of, you're a caregiver, and this is where you belong. I was like,
Exactly.
oh, So that's my other mission this year, 2025, is to really help educate people on what they're doing is actually caregiving. It might be intermittent, you might not be 24/7, but I thought that was really interesting. So I'm assuming that you ran into that in your practice as well.
We all run into that. I mean, even when my husband had knee surgery or whatever, I'm telling people, because I've been doing this for a long time, I'm a caregiver right now. Yes, I'm his wife. Yes, in sickness and his health. But honestly, it doesn't mean that having to now drive him everywhere because he can't drive temporarily, right? Having to make sure he has his meds because he can't go pick them up at the store and, that kind of a thing. Even if you're just a temporary caregiver, you're still a caregiver. And quite frankly, and because we're going to talk about this in terms of the workplace and how there are benefits there for people. I include young mothers and fathers in this who are taking care of their children. I know we have children. I know we're responsible for them, but it doesn't mean you're not a caregiver. And it doesn't mean that that doesn't have an impact on your life and that you can't figure out some ways to make it easier for you. Why not? What's wrong with that? Right?
Well, it actually benefits corporations. That's what my research has shown. Is that
Absolutely. The
just
data
yes,
is absolutely yes. That if you support your caregivers who are already caregivers, I was talking to someone yesterday and she was saying there's something like 25% at least of most employers are experiencing caregiving as we speak, as they work. And there is also a very large contingent of caregivers who are millennials, right? These people often probably aren't identifying themselves, as you said, and probably also feel excluded from the conversation because they feel like it's directed towards baby boomers, right? Who are either caregiving for elderly parents or who are themselves now being cared for, but nobody's paying attention to who their young caregivers are. So this is an all-inclusive conversation for people in the workforce because when I talk about this to you, I want you to be thinking all of the time, yes, this could be me. I should maybe do those things or look at those benefits, or maybe it's for my parents. And maybe I should be at least looking at it for them. And is there this benefit at work? Can I use that for my parents? Because you will be surprised that the answer is probably yes.
73% of employees have some sort of caregiving responsibility.
There you go.
73%. It's like, what are the other 27 doing? Like,
enjoying their life.
I guess so. I mean, my parents are gone. My in-law,
right.
I don't.
So they've already done it. In that 27% are people who might have been in the 73 and just aren't anymore, right?
I wouldn't consider myself in the 27, and people are going to laugh. And this is by no means anywhere similar to taking care of my mom. I have a senior citizen dog who is, I have a golden retriever. She's extremely social. She gets very bored with me working at home.
Yeah.
And in the afternoons, she really needs to get out and go. Yesterday, because I couldn't get my workout done in the morning, I was like, you know what? I put a reminder in my phone, take a walk, because I'm doing the 100-day challenge with Peloton, and I don't want to miss a day.
Yeah, so
that would annoy
me.
Yeah, and I already
and the dog.
Yeah, I've already passed the challenge, but it's like, the challenge is January 1st to whatever 100 days from January 1st is.
Yeah,
but I'm over 100 days in a row. But anyway, so I was trying. So I'm like, okay, we're gonna take a walk. And when she realized we were taking a walk, she's bouncing, jumping up and down, which is kind of hard on old legs. She gets on her hind legs and gives me a hug. I mean, just the happiness and the joy. And, if we're not going to be home at her dinner time, we need somebody to come in to feed her. I was in Atlanta with the Alzheimer's Association. My husband doesn't work at home, so I needed somebody to entertain her. It's like my caregiving is this dog.
I mean, yeah, and it's like our children, like we choose that, right? We definitely choose that, but doesn't mean we can't use help.
It's probably not employer benefits for caregiving for an old dog, but
well, you know what? Just we're going to move on to that, but just as an aside, the number one requested benefit right now is pet insurance.
Interesting. I can see why.
So don't be so sure.
I was just reading an article about caregiving benefits, And there's also a request for paternity leave. I was trying to remember the exact phrase they used. And I'm like,
Meaning for your
okay,
dog?
I guess they didn't really define it, but I was like, but it was PAW, paw.
Yeah. So like if your dog has surgery or something like that.
Yeah, it's definitely taking care of dogs is a lot easier than kids or parents with Alzheimer's. But, I think we're slowly and hopefully quicker entering a point in our work life where work life and home life are no longer two separate entities. They blend together, and you can't say I'm home, I'm not answering that work email, or I'm at work, my mother's called 3 times, I'm just going to continue to. I think those days are over. I hope
you don't get punished for either.
correct.
That would be the nice part, right? You don't get punished for that either way. But anyway, shall we talk about the benefits?
Definitely.
Okay, so obviously I'm a lawyer. So the first thing I'm going to say is legal benefits. Many of you have what's called a legal benefit at work. Sometimes it's under your EAP, your Employee Assistance Program. And often what it is for free or for a low-cost fee, you can talk to a lawyer about anything. And I am going to tell you that if you haven't taken advantage of that, you should do that right away, because what you need to do is get your documents in order. You need to get a durable financial power of attorney. You need to get a healthcare power of attorney or proxy, whatever it's called in your state. An advance directive would be nice, and also a will. All of those things you have to have those ducks in a row, because, and like I said, elder lawyers deal with sick people, not dead people. A lot of people love to say to me, oh, I have all my beneficiaries taken care of. I don't need to worry about it. And I have a will from 30 years ago. I'm cool. And I'm like, again, all of that's for dead people. Beneficiaries, wills, that's for dead. And that's awesome if you do have that. And you should check your beneficiaries constantly. But I'm talking about what happens if your dad has a stroke, or you have a stroke, or you get hit by a bus on the way out the door from work, and you can't take care of your affairs for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 6 months, a year. Who does that for you? And don't say, oh, my spouse, because guess what? They have no legal authority to sign checks for you. Now, that's in a non-joint account. Certainly at work, they don't have any access to your work benefits, to your work information, to how you're going to get paid. They technically, can't talk to your doctor. Of course, they're going to, right? Because you're a spouse. But technically, especially when you need to apply for benefits, right? If you need disability benefits or whatever, you need someone who has the financial authority to do so. And that's a durable financial power of attorney. Here's the 30-second definition of a power of attorney. It is a document that you sign giving the authority to someone you choose, called your agent, to act as if they are you in every capacity for doing all of your financial affairs. So it's a really powerful tool, really powerful. So you have to choose wisely, right? You have to choose your person wisely, because they can get into your bank account. They can use your credit card. They can get a credit card. They can sell your house, sell your car, buy a car. Like, it's a really powerful, powerful tool, but it is absolutely necessary. I'm sure Jennifer would agree, when you have a circumstance where the person you're caring for cannot take care of their affairs, right? So you got to have those. Where do they come from? They come from a lawyer. What happens if you don't have them? You got to go to court. Oof. And go through the guardianship process. And not only is that expensive and costly and takes a lot of time, but you have to report to the court every single year, every penny you spend on that person, even if it's your spouse. Nobody wants that. Nobody. So
I'm not that kind of accountant. That would be very hard.
Right? Exactly. It's horrible. So that being said, if you have a legal benefit for cheap or even just for free to start the conversation, please start that conversation, especially if you don't have those documents. And keep in mind, maybe you need to talk to your parents about this, because I always tell people, ask the lawyer, hey, this isn't just for me. I'm going to bring my parents. Could you give them the same discount? I haven't met a lawyer yet who isn't going to do business with a whole family of people, right? I'm going to bring my sister. I'm going to bring my parents. Use this benefit wisely, but use it. And if you don't have this benefit, you can ask HR. can we get a legal benefit? Because very often, especially if you have an EAP, an employee assistance program through benefits, they just haven't added it because nobody's expressed an interest. And if you have a caregiving group at work, many of you do, some of you don't, maybe you should start one. But if you have a caregiving group, sometimes they call them ERGs, employee resource groups, you can say, hey, let's go talk to HR because there's 10 of us, 12 of us, 30 of us, and we want legal benefits. Okay. Number one, that's my first one. Next one, long-term care insurance.
Oh, yes.
You can get this as a group benefit if your company has it. I don't want to tell you how old I am. I don't do that anymore. But a very long time ago, my husband and I, when my kids were little, because my grandmother lived with us when I had a 2-year-old and a dog and a 92-year-old all living with me together at the same time. I saw the writing on the wall, okay? And I said to my husband, we're going to get long-term care insurance because his company, which was very forward-thinking back then, right, said they were going to offer it as a benefit. So we bought it, and we've had that now for 30 years at least. That was a godsend. Honestly, I hope I never use it. I really do, but I am so happy to have it because I know it will protect me or my husband in a financial crisis of a nursing home situation, which now is upwards of $12,000 a month where I live. Okay. I also live in a state, I live in Pennsylvania, where we do not give any benefit for assisted living. So that's all on your own. That's your own dime.
I've been there.
So long-term care insurance, again, guess what? 2 things. Number one, it might be a group benefit that you already have. Number 2, if you don't, ask HR to come talk to you about it. And not just you, but if you have other people in your company that you know are dealing with this. Number 3, you can sometimes buy it for your parents through your group insurance. That is a benefit. And as a company benefit, I guess I'll stop that right there because I sort of want to move on to the next piece, which is another way to get long-term care insurance. But it often exists and you don't know it. You're not paying attention. And if you're a millennial, and Jen and I were talking about this before we even started, that there are so many millennials who are caregivers. And you're thinking about this in terms of your parents, right? I hope you're listening to this, especially you're a millennial or a young Gen X or even an older Gen X.
I'm old Gen X.
Yeah, that sure, it's about your parents, but this stuff is a lot cheaper when you're younger. When you're younger and you're healthy, that's when you buy it because it's cheaper. And like I said, you can get hit by a bus tomorrow. But my point is that long-term care insurance is not just for the old. This stuff can happen to anybody. And if it's a benefit at work and it's either voluntary or it's actually included, like you can pick and choose from the menu and it's not going to cost you anything because your HSA or your FSA will pay for it, those savings accounts that you have, you might want to consider that. Okay. Because, you know why? Tell them why, Jen. Why would you want to have long-term care insurance?
My mom was in memory care for 3 years.
Right.
And 2 weeks. And it was over $250,000 for those 3 years. And I don't think I've talked about this recently.
I didn't even set her up for that, you guys. That was a question out of the blue. I had no idea what she was going to say, except that I sort of knew because that's always the answer.
Well, she had fallen. So my mom passed away right at the start of the pandemic because she fell and broke her leg. And her fee, because they always reevaluated her needs in terms of care in March. So March 2020, she falls March 8th. They reevaluate her. A lot of changes, especially because she was just too far advanced in her Alzheimer's to even contemplate surgery. She was going to need physical therapy. Either way, she was not the least bit interested in cooperating with that. So it was just like, I'm really glad I opted not to do the surgery because she did pass away about 2.5 weeks after the fall. She was at $5,600 a month. And the new fee that was supposed to start April 1st was $7,200. So that's a big jump. We were very lucky. Her home was completely paid for. We rented it out. I don't know what would have happened if the family that was renting our house, dad was the sole earner and he made the most heavenly baklava and sold it to restaurants and delis. And so I don't know what he did during the pandemic, but it could have been really, really ugly for everybody. The increased fee on it's just like,
Right.
but I've told people, a lot of people, I am 1,000% convinced mom had a moment of clarity and went, there's this virus thing. Nobody can come in and visit. I can't go to the park and watch the kids. And $7,200, forget it. I'm out, because she died about 11 and a half hours before April 1st. She died in the afternoon of March 31st.
Wow.
Yeah, I was like, okay, thanks for not cutting it too close.
Okay, I hope you don't think this is rude, but what a gift.
Yes, no, I've said that because she couldn't have done the window visits,
Oh, no.
or her visual processing was real garbage, and and her it just wouldn't have been good. It was very stressful the 2 weeks that I didn't get to see her.
So
I did get to see her 2 days before she died. The day before she died.
I don't know who in your listeners has $250,000 sitting around just waiting to be used for, long-term care, but it's unlikely. And so all I'm saying is, if you work and this is an option, it is probably something you should look at and consider, and even just bring to the table for your fellow employees. Jennifer just told me 73% of employees are caregivers, some kind of caregiving, right? So I'm sorry, I'm turning you people into the voice. You got to be the voice at work, right? The other back avenue to that is a financial advisor. Often your EAP will have you can meet with a financial advisor for free, like for 30 minutes or whatever, and see if you want to have a relationship or whatever. I cannot stress to you, and I know Jennifer will agree with this, how much caregiving is attached to money.
Yep.
It's such a money question. And you're over here with all the emotion and all the stress. And then there's the money, right?
Well, and then there's the family relationships that come with
all
money.
Yes, all of it. And so, but yes. So if everybody had a huge pile of money that would take care of that part, you'd still have a lot of the emotion and the family relationships. So you'd still have a lot of those things. But that money picture just makes it 10 times worse. So I am going to recommend to you as an employee that you go talk to the financial advisor if you have this as a benefit. It's, again, sometimes through your EAP, sometimes it's just a benefit that they've set up. Sometimes it's a voluntary benefit, and they give it to you, like I said, a half hour for free. You can talk to them. But again, you know what you can do? You can talk to them about your parents. You can say, listen, I'm 32 years old. I think I know what's going on, and we can talk about me, but my parents are in their 60s and they don't have anything. And the biggest, somebody just told me this yesterday, the biggest financial concern for millennials in the future is going to be paying for their parents' care. So, again, another way for you to use a benefit to help with the whole family situation. And guess what financial advisors often can do? They can talk to you about long-term care insurance, because it doesn't have to just be a pure long-term care policy. Sometimes it can come through, a 401k change. They call it a 1035 exchange to a different product that has a long-term care benefit attached. I am not a financial advisor. Let me say that again. I am not a financial advisor. And in fact, in Pennsylvania, attorneys are not allowed to sell financial products. So I don't, because I'm not allowed. I have to choose, and I choose to be a lawyer. What I'm telling you is that everything that I do is so intertwined with people's money that I have to work with their financial advisors. And so I learn about what kinds of things my clients have, or maybe could have, or who should they talk to. And I know that there are dozens of ways to get long-term care insurance, right? Different kinds of ways. If you think that is something that you might want to consider, and I think you might, I don't care who you are, you should at least talk to financial people about it. And in the back of your mind, I hope you're thinking, yeah, my parents too, right? Or if you're my age, maybe you think, I want my children who are in their 30s, I want them to come with me to talk about this, because I don't want them, I want them to understand what my wants or my needs if I get sick. And I want them to know what the plan is and how they can fit into that, how I can help them so I'm not a burden to them. Right?
Just that knowledge is a benefit because you're not, if you got a parent that gets sick or, like my dad ended up in the hospital and it was like, oh crap, now what do we do with mom? And you got all those emotional things to deal with. And for us, my husband, who used to be in banking, realized somebody better be paying the bills. So he went to my parents' financial planner and said, here's what's going on. And he helped. Now, of course, families being what they are, my sister is convinced that my husband did something illegal, just to get the bills paid, like, but the roof over their heads.
If they would have had a power of attorney to be in charge.
They did that. All of that stuff we actually had to hire an elder care attorney to read their trust, because it's very clear what happened with the estate when my dad died.
Right.
But it basically said my dad dies, it goes to mom.
Right. But it was like after that.
Well, there was, but it was like on page 11. Like,
yeah,
you have to be an attorney to figure.
Right. No, I get it.
We're grieving and we're trying to figure out what to do with mom, and it's like neither one of us are attorney. It was like, dear Lord, it was money well spent because it gave peace of mind, and that's priceless. So
that brings up a really good point. Going back to the financial advisors and attorneys, trusts are a very good tool. They're a really good tool. But don't be doing that by yourself. They are complicated. And there's a reason for that, because lawyers are thinking 10 steps down the road as our financial advisors, right? I'm just not a fan, sorry, of doing this stuff DIY. It's just not smart. It's just not. Sorry.
There's things you don't think about. Like we have one child.
Yeah. Get the help you need, because it's kind of one time, maybe two, right? To get your affairs in order. And if things change, if you're lucky enough that you did it in your 30s, then do it again in your 40s, and maybe nothing has to change in your 50s. Like keep looking at it, but maybe you don't even have to change anything until you're in your 60s or your 70s. But like you said, money well spent. Money well spent.
We did our trust during the pandemic. Like I said, we have one daughter, son-in-law's family, always been poor, terrible with money. They didn't get the great path in life. There's just some people that
don't get the gifts.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And so our attorney that was doing the trust said, well, what happens with your estate if your daughter dies before you? And I was like,
correct.
That's a very rude question.
No, it isn't.
And I literally dove into my head and I was thinking, well, of course I would give it to the son-in-law. Like, there's not really anybody else to give it to. But what if his family and finally one day I just was like, you know what? I'll be dead.
I'm dead.
And so I told him, I'm like, this is what's happening. Don't make me come back and haunt you. Don't let so don't give me an excuse to haunt you. And it was like, just like that whole
peace
thing.
Of mind.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
You do have decisions. Yes.
And we knew decisions because my husband's in real estate.
But you got to make the decision.
Exactly.
The state of Washington didn't get to make that decision. You did. Right? And that's the important part. The state of California, the state of Pennsylvania. Nobody gets to make that decision but you, if you take the time to go make the decision. So that's critical.
And they're aware of what it says. They have a copy of it. It's not like, oh, I can't tell you. This is our finances.
If you're capable for whatever reason of being fully transparent with your adult children, I am all about that. I am all about that. And the same goes for you, parents. If your adult children, want to be transparent, open up your eyes and your mind to know that these are the people who are probably going to have to take care of you and make decisions. And the more you discuss it, the better off everybody will be. So, it's a shame we were raised this way. I don't know why everything has to be a secret. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's silly.
It is. It's silly. So
when you have these conversations about all these transparent conversations, it's really important to also discuss if something happens, this is how I want to be cared for. Like, don't be like my mom going, I don't want to be a burden to you, but I'm going to live in my home forever. Like, lady, those are mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
And I had to live with the I don't want to say guilt, but it felt like guilt. But just knowing that I was not doing what she wanted, but I was doing what was best for her and the whole rest of the family, it was very hard to square off those corners. So yeah, just
agreed. And it's better to talk about those things before the crisis arises.
Yeah, right? Don't dump all that grief.
I actually told my husband, see, now I'm putting it on a podcast, so it'll be there forever. But I said, if I'm nursing home material, put me in there. Do not be sitting at my bedside in our house. No, absolutely not. We've got long-term care insurance. I told you that we've had it. We have a plan if somebody gets sick and how we're going to deal with it. No, I'm not doing that to my family. It's not just my husband. It's my grown children and my grandchildren. I'm not doing that to them.
And then just one quick note on long-term care insurance, because you made the comment that it's cheaper when you're younger. Totally true. So my friend who's retired and didn't know what a sandwich caregiver was, it still hurts my brain. He and his wife looked into long-term care insurance, I think just before the pandemic. So 2018, 2019, as they're approaching retirement. They're both retired now. He retired first, obviously. And it was like $100,000 buy-in, or either $100,000 or $150,000 each. And he's
that's an annuity. That's not long-term care insurance like a regular policy. That's not how it's usually a monthly premium like every other insurance. So that's some kind of annuity buy-in kind of a thing. Yeah.
Is it possible that they had to do that because they were already in their 60s?
No, 60s is young for long-term care insurance.
Oh, okay. So there's so many different kinds. It's very confusing.
So that was probably an annuity program that it included probably a life insurance benefit as well if they didn't use it, blah, blah, blah. I mean, again, I'm not an insurance broker. I'm not a financial advisor. I don't sell these products. I'm just familiar because my clients deal with it and I deal with it. And I talk to these people who do sell them just to know what's going on out there. But that's very weird.
Well, they didn't buy into it. And the house they bought, they moved, we moved, they moved, we all moved to the Sierra foothills. The house they have, they're adding like some downstairs guest rooms. And their thought process is
they'll stay there.
Well, if they ever need caregivers, they have basically a mini apartment.
That's great.
It'll have a kitchen.
What's beautiful about that? It's a plan. They have a plan. So great. They made a plan. They said, and we're going to take $200,000 and do this, and we'll use that for our care. There's nothing wrong with that. Every plan is fine. I don't care what your plan is. Just have one, right?
Have one. Okay, now, so we talked about
legal benefits. We talked about long-term care insurance. We talked about financial benefits. We didn't talk about FMLA, which is kind of standard, and I sort of didn't put it out there because I think everybody knows about it, but maybe you don't. I don't know. And it is limited to certain, like if you work for somebody who only has 10 employees, you're not entitled to FMLA. It starts, I think, at 50 employees. But if you have FMLA, it's the Family and Medical Leave Act, which allows you to have time off for care of a loved one. It doesn't mean paid time off, unfortunately, although certain states do require it to be paid. It's usually 12 weeks, so it's not a lot. It's also good for, it's good for pregnancy, and people use it for paternity leave. Like there's a lot of other uses of FMLA, but it's definitely, if your parents, if your spouse, if your child, I think it's also been extended to your grandparents, you can use that time off from work and you won't lose your job. So it's a benefit and it's out there and you should take advantage of it if you need to, right?
At least be familiar with what
your company has, or what they should have, what they're supposed to have, right? And what you get for that, and how you can fit that into your work life if you need to, if you see it coming. Like say your mom has a diagnosis of early onset Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or something like that. You can say, I want to know, I don't need it now, but I want to know, what is that actually going to be if I need to take FMLA? Find out. Absolutely. Again, forewarned is forearmed, right?
And you're not trying to find out stuff in the midst of heightened emotions.
Right. Exactly.
Because I'm not sure we hear very well when we're stressed out and freaking out because mom's been diagnosed with Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, or even just, like a really aggressive cancer or something.
Right. Exactly.
I'm assuming it's the rare person who could be like, okay, we've got this diagnosis and now I got to find out that I don't think we work that way.
In fact, it may be the last thing on your list. And if you already know the answer, how awesome is that? You're like, okay, in the back of my mind, I know I can take 12 weeks. We're not there yet, but I can fit that into my schedule for when maybe mom needs me. My sister can come for a while, whatever your family might have. It's just great having that knowledge. And so if you work for a large employer, you already have it. You just need to find out exactly how it works, right?
Is that annually generally that you get the 12 weeks?
Yes, I think it is. I think it's an annual benefit. Yeah. Okay. Two things I really want to talk about: mental and physical health. There is nothing that is going to drain the heck out of you more than caregiving, in addition to being a worker, whether you're part-time or full-time, right? So now you're working two full-time jobs, a full-time job and a part-time job, whatever. It's going to drain you. Mental health, for all the right reasons, has become a very big EAP and or benefit at corporate work. It's awesome. They claim that you don't get dinged for tapping into the mental health resources. And we're all going to hopefully believe that that's true, because there was a time when nobody wanted to do it because they thought, oh my God, it's on my record that I went and saw a therapist or whatever. But even Medicare gives you therapy now. Like, everybody can get therapy now. It's awesome. And we all need it. Quite frankly, everybody, just go get therapy. Just do it now, whether you need it or not, because you do. We all need therapy.
Life dictates we all need therapy at some point.
But if you are under the stress of caregiving, I would very much like to suggest to you that you consider finding someone who is even an expert in caregiving stress and talk to them. And your work will probably pay for that. Isn't that wonderful?
Mm-hmm. It benefits them because your
tools, yes.
Mm-hmm. You're not
Jen said this before we came on. Everything benefits you, employer. If I take care of myself, if I do all these things to make it easier, it benefits you. I'm a better employee. I'm making more money for you. You don't have to hire somebody else. I'm not going to quit. You don't have to, retrain someone. Everything that we're talking about here benefits the employer.
Just the loyalty. If employer is supporting sandwich caregivers who've got kids at home and elderly parents, and they're, especially people like yourself that trained for their career or have, gotten into like upper management. It's like, you don't want to just be like, oh, well, I'll just quit because, life's expensive.
And we've already, people do quit because they can't figure out how to do this, right?
It's difficult to do two full-time jobs. And unfortunately, and this is a whole other episode, but, in-home care was a problem before the pandemic. And now it's just, I don't even think I'd want to be in that business. It's just very, very difficult. And if you have to get out the door at 7:30 and your caregiver for your mom who can't be home alone, like my mom,
doesn't show.
Yeah, now what? And, you have a few of those times and you're just like, and you just feel the candle burning at both ends, ready. Yeah. I know people in their mid-30s that don't work because they're caring for somebody. And it's like, and I totally get it. And I applaud them that they can do that, because that was not me. But, what's going to happen when they try to get back into the corporate world, and the corporate world's going to be like, well, what the heck have you been doing? And you're like, oh, well, let's see, medical care, legal care, financial care, mental health care, management. It's like, I've said a lot, caregivers need an honorary PhD, because you have to learn all these things just to manage your loved one, which is a lot,
a lot, which is why you should take advantage of mental health benefits.
Definitely. It's like making me feel like I need it right now.
The other thing they may have is gym benefits, right? Again, if you're 65, even if you're working, your Medicare plan probably has silver sneakers or something. I could join 6 gyms if I wanted to through my health insurance, right? I probably should, but I could. And that's important. I'm telling you, you've got to physically take care of yourself. You've got to, if you need a nutritionist, that's probably part of your medical benefits. If you want, if you need if you need to go to a chiropractor or you need massage therapy or whatever it is, trust me, this is really often woven into your benefits, and you're not really thinking of that. You're just thinking, I'm stressed and I'm starting to lose my mind and I don't know what to do about it because I've got 14,000 things to do besides take care of me. This is not a cup of tea and a book. This is really important choices for your mental and physical health, and it's probably free.
I'm going to have to check and see if our benefits will cover my Peloton membership.
Please do that. Yeah.
Because it covers the chiropractor. I need to take advantage of some of the massage benefits occasionally, but
yep.
The other reason both of those benefits are so important is mental and physical health. Taking care of those two things helps prevent dementia.
Yeah, that's true.
So
if that's something that you're dealing with in your family, you are being proactive that way. Yes, exactly. If you have a family history, you need to be proactive. And that is one of the singularly easiest ways to do that, is to take care of your mental and physical health. If you have help, which you do if you're at work, because they have benefits. Yeah,
definitely making a note to check. I mean, I think the Peloton membership's $45. Not huge, but hey, $45 a month times 12 adds up.
I think that's enough for people's plate right now, don't you?
Yes. This has been amazing because I have not worked in the corporate world since early 1991.
Wow.
So we're talking 34 years.
Yeah.
And I don't think we had any of that stuff back in those days.
Except long-term care insurance. You probably had that and didn't know it. I mean, who knows, right? We weren't paying attention. I only knew that because I was very young. I was in my 30s and my grandmother was living with me. And I'm like, when those benefits, my husband worked for a Fortune 100 company. So those benefit packages were this big when they came out. And there was a lot of choose from column A, choose from column B. And and I'm a lawyer, so I read everything, right? And when I read that, I'm like, yep, that right there, we're buying that. Yes.
Well, I hope the millennials and the young Gen Xers are paying attention, because 70% of us need care before we die. And I always tell people, please don't assume you're part of the 30%. Those are people who die suddenly, quickly, who, are hit by a bus or whatever. I'm a cyclist, so I've had some hairy situations, including 8 years ago, flew off my bike and knocked myself out cold and broke my collarbones, and I cracked my helmet all the way through. So there's your tip for why you should wear helmets, even though they make your hair look ugly. It's just, it's so important, because, if you're going to gamble, you're not going to gamble on the 30%. So I don't understand why people will gamble with, well, I'm going to be in that 30%. I'm not going to need care. My family's not going to have to take care of me. It's like, let's just assume you're in the 70. And if you land in the 30, right, you're prepared to be in the 70.
And if the only thing you want to do today is take care of your mental and physical health, then start there. But start somewhere, because assuming that you're never going to get hurt, you're never going to be disabled, and even if it's temporary, is kind of it's a fallacy. We've all been in that place. I can assure you that my husband and I have used our powers of attorney when the other one was traveling, right? When the other one was sick and couldn't sign documents when we needed them to. Like, you just never know. So, I mean, if I have to give you parting words, my parting words are always going to be, get those legal documents done for you and your parents. Just get them done. And, take care of your health. And all that other stuff is great too.
I can second the legal documents, because when we did our trust and all that stuff, at first it's like, oh, but as soon as we did it and we got through all the tough questions, it's like, oh, I don't have to worry about this. And it's only been 4 or 5 years. It's not even that. We're not even up to the point where we need to reevaluate it. Yes. Probably. So my husband just turned 60. So probably in the next 5 years when
I tell everybody, just look at them in 5 years, because, something may have changed that you're not thinking about, especially in your case, you only have one daughter, but some people have 4 and 5 kids, and sometimes they get divorced, Sometimes a kid is like a ne'er-do-well, and you're like, I might need to just readjust. He might need to have a different way that he's going to get his money, right? Not just straight out. So I say every 5 years, just look at it and see if it's still, when you read it, does it still say what you want it to say? And if so, cool. And if not, change it.
Now, updates aren't that hard.
Yeah, nothing's written in stone, too. That's the other thing. Nothing's written
That
in
is true.
Yeah.
Even with lawyers.
It's only written in stone if you don't change it. And on that note, let's just say check your beneficiaries. Check, 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 check. You have a beneficiary on your IRA, on your 401k, on all your life insurance. A lot of people don't fill it out when they go to work. They put their mom in there. They get married, have 3 kids, they die, and guess what? Mom and dad get all the money, and they never liked your wife in the first place, and now your wife and your kids get nothing. Check your beneficiaries. Please, for the love of God, trust me. There's more law cases over no beneficiaries or the wrong beneficiary than I care to tell you. Every single year in our legal conferences, we talk about, they didn't check their beneficiaries. So check that.
That's an excellent point. And who better to share all this information than a lawyer who has taken care of 8 different people?
Yeah.
I can't think of anybody better. So I appreciate you helping educate my listeners, because obviously this is not a topic I can talk on because I don't pay myself any kind of benefit.
Thanks for having me. I really always appreciate the opportunity to be out there in the public where, there's a whole raft of people that maybe I won't run across, but maybe now they'll find just one little nugget here that will help them. So I really appreciate the opportunity. Thanks, Jen.